Welcome to Let Them Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo.
And I'm Miss Joan Marie Musi.
Just checking the levels there. And our guest, Elliot Madison. Welcome.
Welcome
a self-described anarchist?
Yeah, I don't know if there's any other kind of anarchist. There's no
That's how the newspapers refer to you a lot.
Yeah,
self-described
or
anarchist.
self-proclaimed.
Yeah, I'm going to just fix that there. Okay, great. Well, Elliot, you're an interesting guy because you're the type of radical that, I've always been fascinated by, a person who really, believe, a lot of people, they talk the talk, few people walk the walk. You talk the talk, you walk the walk. Very interesting. You were at the G20 in Pittsburgh. You were helping people who were protesting there.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And you got arrested basically on a freedom of speech charge. Very rare that it happens in such a clear way as happened in your case.
What do you mean a freedom of speech charge?
Well, that's what we're going to get at, because that's what I think it is. When I saw Marty Stoller was your attorney, I mean,
Right.
He's Mr. Free Speech, so, and I know he was claiming it as a freedom of speech charge, but I'm going to let you describe it for us. Well, first of all, let's give folks some background. G20 Pittsburgh. What does G20 mean? Is it the newest Apple computer? I mean, what's
Not exactly.
What's G20?
G20 is the richest 20 nations. The leaders come together and determine a variety of policies or approaches to the rest of the world. And it has to do a lot with debt restructuring for the global south. It also has to do this year with environmental issues and things like that. Not a lot comes out of the G20 as far as like concrete policy, but you'll see policies maybe 2 or 3 years down the line will come out from the meetings of basically the world's most powerful people.
Now, you said policies with a sort of sneer. Why are those policies problematic?
Because the G20 is ostensibly supposed to be a global kind of meeting of the minds, but it's only the top 20 countries, and most of the policies that they'll decide will affect where the 90% of the other population lives, which is the global south. And so really very little as far as policy for France or England or even China, but it has a lot to do with places like Zimbabwe, Bolivia, and places like that. So,
But you're saying they're not represented at this
they're
meeting.
not represented at all, and that's a serious problem. And
through things like trade and IMF policies,
Exactly.
building dams and...
So this is the reason why it sparks protests, is that people disagree with the basic structure of
and the other
what's
people,
going
the invited guests, tend to be all corporate about it. Bill Gates was there, Steve Jobs was there, ironically the CEO from Twitter was there. Corporations are invited to the table, but regular people, NGOs, groups like that never get to the table.
Mm-hmm.
So now tell us why you were
Yeah.
arrested.
Well, it's a little unclear because the thing...
Well, actually, I want to go. I want to get to that. There were protests. Okay,
Yes.
Tell us a little bit. Who was protesting? Why were they protesting? And what form did those protests take?
Right. There were a variety of groups.
The picture behind us, you can see.
Yes.
Here, it sort of tells the story, but we'll hear it from you too. You were there.
There were, well, you're not going to hear too much about it from me because I get arrested very early on.
Okay.
So what I see is mostly from jail. But the groups that were there were a variety of groups, anywhere from Free Tibet people were there to anti-war people, still concerned about the Afghanistan war and the troops in Iraq, to traditional anti-globalists, people that were interested in drawing attention to things like sweatshops, restructuring debts in the global
indigenous movements,
Yeah, indigenous
Ecuadorian natives
movements.
fighting the oil companies.
and then Greenpeace and groups like
Yeah,
that are
sure.
concerned about environmental policies
Right.
and things
Now,
like
some
that.
folks protest in a more reserved manner, and others are more active and more aggressive in their protesting. There were some folks
Yeah.
who were the anarchists, I guess. They usually always pin it on the anarchists.
Right.
Who seem to be willing to be pinned with it. They were out there protesting more actively, wearing masks, maybe breaking a few windows, getting tear gas thrown at them, and things
Right.
like that.
What's interesting about Pittsburgh is there was an attempt to outlaw the masks, as they've done in places like New York,
Sure.
Washington, D.C., even Seattle. The Pittsburgh City Council decided not to go along with that. So people were allowed to wear masks. I don't know how many people actually wore masks. Again, I was kind of arrested before a lot of the turbulence that happened, say, Thursday late afternoon and Friday night. I was already in jail well before all of that happened.
Right. Now, let's talk about your case. What was your role in all of this before you were arrested?
Okay, so before I was arrested, I went to Pittsburgh, actually right outside of Pittsburgh. I never got to Pittsburgh. I was arrested before Pittsburgh. I was with a group called the Tin Cans Communications Collective, and it's a group of people that work together to provide Twitter feeds, which is basically messages to cell phones that was public. We know media groups were part of it. People that weren't even in Pittsburgh were part of it. And it was a way for us to collect information from what was happening on the street and to distribute it to anybody that wanted it. Police, anybody could sign up. We didn't know who was signed up. We know, I guess I've heard that there was about 600 to 800 people signed up, but we don't even actually know the numbers. And what was a little bit different than a regular Twitter, even though we used the Twitter
Now
service.
let's stop there, because there might be a few people out there, like 5 people.
Right.
Like 3 months ago, I never heard of Twitter. So,
Nor I.
So what is Twitter?
So Twitter is just a piece of software, my understanding, I'm not super technologically savvy, that allows you to send a text message. Now, normally when I send a text message, I send it to one person.
Sure.
And what this allows is for people that I don't even know to follow me, and they can type in a text, and then anytime I send a text, they'll get that text. So instead of sending it to one person, I'm sending it to anybody that is following me. You know, someone like Madonna, for example, has like, 28,000 people following. So she doesn't have to send out 28,000 texts. She sends out one, and it gets copied to everybody.
Right, I see. And people can sign up. They go to the Twitter site and they say,
So you don't approve each person as they sign up. They simply, you offer it and people sign up for
Exactly. So Madonna doesn't know who the 28,000 people are.
Right.
We didn't know who the people that we were
And
signed
how
up.
many did you have signed up on Twitter again?
Again, I'm not sure because I don't do the technological aspect, but I've heard anywhere between like 600 to 1,000 people.
Okay, and they could get these Twitters. You can get them on your computer. You can get them on your cell phone.
Exactly.
You can get them on your PDA, anything really,
Right.
whatever you set to get it for.
Right. And the only interesting difference for us is that our system allowed. So take the Madonna example. She gets to send messages to you, say the 3 of us. And I can send a message back to Madonna, but it won't go to the 2 of you.
Nice.
Okay.
She could decide to forward it to the 2, to everybody.
Right.
What we did is we decided to allow people to communicate to each other.
So anybody who was part of that 600 to 1,000 people
Right.
who were members, if they posted up to Twitter, it wouldn't just go to you or whoever was in Twitter
Right.
Central. It would go to all 600, 1,000
And
people.
the other difference.
That's a lot of trust.
Yeah, and the other difference too was that we knew a lot of people, especially older people, aren't really big into texting. Some people have to pay extra for texting. But we wanted to get as much information as we could about what was happening from the street from as wide a variety of people. So we just posted a phone number, and we said you could call this, talk to a live person, and they would type down
we'll
what
do
you-
your message.
and we'll send the message out. So even people that weren't following us